I think it possibly opened in Cambridge, the first loot, but it was quite extraordinarily unfunny, and it never got funny. And at Golders Green Michael had to decide when it was at Golders Green whether to bring it into London, and he asked me to go and see it on the Saturday. And it was really very, very bad indeed. And when it was withdrawn, Joe was frightfully upset. He knew it wasn't funny and he knew it was a failure, but he had got very fond of Kenneth Williams and Peter Wood and everybody. But then he said to me, well, if we withdraw it, do you think it'll ever go on again? I said, oh, yes, it'll go on. Of course it will. And within 6 months, by a kind of miracle, it did. Michael White got hold of it, and he decided to do it in a very small theatre with Charles Marovitz as a director, and a very sordid little set, and rather real actors. It was very funny.
There's a uniformed policeman at the door. They're onto us.
Oh, it's bluff.
No, God works for them. They have him in their pocket like we've always been taught.
We've got to get rid of him. He'll find the body next. Remember when we were wrapping her up?
It's not something I care to reminisce about.
Something dropped out. We couldn't find it.
Yes?
I know what it was.
What?
One of her eyes.
It's just a bobby making a nuisance of himself. The theft of a pharaoh is something which hadn't crossed my mind. Whose mummy is this?
It's mine.
Whose was it before?
I'm an only child.
A word of warning. Don't take the mickey, it makes me angry. Okay.
It's not a mummy. It's a dummy. I used it for my sewing.
What sex is it?
I call it she because of my sewing. The garments were female, and because I'm literal-minded, I chose to believe I was making them on a lady.
Splendid. Excellently put.
No actual evidence of sex can be given. It's contrary to English law.
Yes. A tailor's dummy provided with evidence of sex would fill the mind of the average magistrate with misgiving. Why is it wrapped?
We were taking it in the car.
To a carnival. She's part of a display.
What part?
A sewing class. Pre-war. The difference in technique is to be demonstrated.
Is this dummy a frequent visitor to exhibitions?
Yes.
When is the object's outing to take place?
She's not going now.
The treat has been cancelled?
Yes.
Why?
My mate Dennis was to arrange transport. He let us down.
I can believe that. From what I've heard of your friend, I'd say he was quite capable of disappointing a tailor's dummy. Now, you claim this object is awaiting transport to a carnival where it will be used to demonstrate the continuity of British needlework.
Yes.
Sounds a reasonable explanation. Quite reasonable. What were you doing on Saturday night?
I was in bed.
Can you confirm that, miss?
Certainly not.
What were you doing in bed?
Sleeping.
Do you seriously expect me to believe that? A man of your age behaving like a child? What was your mate doing on Saturday night?
He was in bed as well.
What coincidence, miss, don't you agree? Two young men who know each other very well spend their nights in separate beds, asleep. Sounds highly unlikely to me. What is your excuse for knowing him?
He's clever, I'm stupid, see?
Why do you make such stupid remarks?
I'm a stupid person, that's what I'm trying to say.
Well, what proof have I that you're stupid? Give me an example of your stupidity.
I can't.
Why not? Don't believe you're stupid at all.
I am. I had a hand in the bank job. That's stupid, isn't it? Telling you that.
Oh, you must be stupid if you expect me to believe you. Why? You had a hand in a bank job, you wouldn't tell me.
Not unless he was stupid.
But he is stupid, he's just admitted it. He must be the stupidest criminal in England. Unless he's the cleverest. What was your motive in confessing to the bank job?
Prove I'm stupid.
But you proved the opposite.
Yes.
There's more to this case than meets the eye. I'm tempted to believe you did have a hand in the bank job. Yes. I shall inform my superior officer. He will take whatever steps he thinks fit. I may be required to make an arrest.
The Water Board can't arrest people.
Can in certain circumstances.
What circumstances?
I'm not prepared to reveal the inner secrets of the Water Board to a member of the general public. Where's the money?
What was interesting and really riveting about the play was that here was a naturally wicked talent. I mean, Orton was wicked. He wanted to be wicked. He tried to be wicked. And here was a play which was like a kind of essay of Peck's Bad Boy, which was, it was absolutely natural. Of course, it did have these allusions to Wilde and Furbank and all the people that Joe had been reading and had been learning his craft by. But underneath all of those derived influences, there was this amoral character who absolutely enjoyed sex and all its convolutions and saw the absurdity of sex and saw the absurdity of psychiatry and the law and everything else, and was able to write about that from the standpoint of an outsider.
Orton always insisted that he was more than simply a comic writer. Truscott, who posed as a Water Board official in Loot, was based on Detective Superintendent Challoner, a policeman who'd planted evidence on student demonstrators. Orton felt he and Halliwell had been so severely treated in the affair of the library books only because they were homosexual.
I mean, I know from all my conversations with him that he deplored what he regarded as hypocritical nature of the established English view of homosexuality. Yes, he regarded that as totally hypocritical and maintained that they would turn a blind eye to all kinds of situations if it suited them. He thought that was evil. Ironically, of course, it is that very combination that does in turn destroy him, because there's no question about it. It is a homosexual entanglement that does destroy Joe. There's no question about that. I mean, Halliwell's jealousy, I mean, his letter at the end says the answer to this can be found in the diaries. And the diaries of Joe were entirely accounts of promiscuous sex, which Halliwell found a continual threat.
The time that I knew Halliwell was Halliwell at his worst. And from what I can gather, they both started off with... They equally had strong fantasies of themselves, and what had happened is Joe's had been totally fulfilled and Kenneth's had got nowhere. And Kenneth had become very, very grotesque and queenie. The problem was that Joe was actually, and for 67, circa Sergeant Pepper, all the rest of it, everything was happening to Joe and nothing was happening to Kenneth. And they did actually live in one room.
When one imagines that that all of these walls, which are now white, were covered with 1,000 book plates, and that the ceilings were painted, you can imagine how claustrophobic and small it was.
To sit in, it actually gave me a headache the afternoon I was there. It was like noise for the eyes. I mean, the walls were covered in these collages which Kenneth had done, which weren't pleasant collages. There were things like newborn babies being ripped out of Africa and sort of lots of classical paintings around them. There was nowhere you could look which was actually peaceful to the eye. And in the middle of all this, they were giving us mounds of Lyons jam tarts, those very sort of factory-made things, and they were very proudly playing us original soundtracks of Pal Joey. I don't know what I thought they would play us of their record collection, but I was rather surprised at how cosy, in fact, it was.
But the relationship, I mean, the whole thing about the relationship would seem that they're trying to escape convention, sexual stereotyping and so on. It's an irony that it comes back to that at the end, doesn't it?
Because no one can avoid it, I don't think. You see, it's all very well to say, as many homosexuals do, Joe among them, that they despise the husband and wife and the rut relationship of the breadwinner and the houseminder. And that's all very well, but the fact of the matter is that all relationships eventually go into that kind of groove, because you can't have two people going out all the time, otherwise there is nothing done.
Do you think they would have stayed together?
I think they might well have done. I don't know that the sort of flash of success that Joe was having at that time would have sustained itself. And had they got a home in Brighton or whatever, but Kenneth would have had something to do. He would have had a home to run. And all they had was the one room.